Hi, my name is Tammy Burns. I am the parent of a young man who is 19 that has autism. He was diagnosed at 18 months, and we have been on a journey since that moment, figuring out what autism means, and not just what autism means, but what it means in his life and what it means in the life of our family. That has kind of directed my journey as well. I have, through that time, been involved with and now taken on a full-time position at the Autism Society Central Virginia. I'm the outreach and program director there, and spend a lot of my days working with families and individuals with autism, helping them navigate resources and find answers to questions that they may have. So today, I'm going to use all of that background as a parent and hearing from other parents to talk about uh, summer is almost here, and now what do I do? As we know, spring is here, and just a few more weeks, and summer is going to be upon us. And that brings a lot of changes, and so we're going to talk about that today. This is a follow-up, just FYI, this is a follow-up to a webinar that was done in March on talking about summer opportunities that are available in your community. So if you missed that, you may want to check that out as well. It connects nicely with this information. So summer is almost here. For a lot of people, they go, yay, summer's almost here. That means great weather, there's less structure, there's longer days, there's no school. But I say, but I have a child with autism. And that changes the way I view summer sometimes. Yeah, there's great weather. We all know it's warmer. But if you have a son like mine, he is afraid of bugs. So that creates quite an interesting thing. But he's also afraid of birds. And imagine the birds that are out in the spring and the summer, and what you do when you go out to a place, you cannot control the birds that might fly by. And so summer brings some interesting things just for our family specifically there. There's less structure in summer, that's true. But for my son, his autism creates within him an anxiety where he craves structure. He even creates his own structure if there's none there. For example, he has made for himself his day. He gets up at 5:40, not 5:41, not 5:39, 5:40, his feet hit the floor. I hear it because his bedroom is above mine in the house, but 5:40, and then he's going to eat breakfast at 7 o'clock, and he's going to, his day is scheduled. He's going to eat lunch at noon. If he misses lunch at noon, he's not going to have lunch that day. He thrives on structure, and so summer with the less structure created in our family some behavior issues for my son, lots more stimming, lots more anxiety. So things were a little tough, especially when he was elementary school age and younger. The longer days, as I said, he gets up at 5:40. So by the time 5:40 p.m. comes around, he's been up for 12 hours already, and there's still 4 more hours of sunlight in July at that point. The days are a lot longer, and that means we all are dealing with autism a lot longer during the day. There's no school, which is great, except that school offers 6 to 7 hours of structure for children with autism, and suddenly when there is no school, those 6 and 7 hours are open. So I know in talking to families that summer is great, but summer is also very much a struggle. And so it just makes things a little more difficult. So we're going to talk about summer's almost here. Now, what can we do to kind of help deal with some of these things? First of all, when a child is longing for structure, we often have to, as parents, create that structure. And so I would work toward a calendar for my son in the summer when there wasn't that structure, and we would fill in the space with the structure that was needed. We started with something very much like the picture you see here, which is I went to a teacher store and I bought a calendar that's really used for a month, but at the top of it, it has the days of the week, and we would go down the column, and that was a day for us. And we would put pictures of the things we were going to do that day and Velcro them on, and then we'd pull them off as things were done for that day. And that's how we created structure during the week. So it also, and I would alternate between things that I knew he would enjoy and things that I knew we had to get done, like the dentist or the doctor, because as summer comes, that's when you do those things with children as well. So we would alternate some preferred activities with some non-preferred activities, always sandwiching a non-preferred activity between two preferred activities so that it made it a little more easy for him to deal with. So we worked from that, and we have gone to, he's 19 now, we still use a calendar. We actually have one on the side of the refrigerator that's just a magnetic calendar, and we do it by the month. I don't have to give him as much information on his calendar, but he also now carries a smartphone, and we do a calendar on his phone. And it beeps and alerts him when something's coming. We set that as a reminder that it's coming in 10 minutes and those sort of things. And he's gotten very good. He actually can add things to his own calendar now and he'll say to me, "You didn't put that on my calendar." But that sort of calendar and finding the activities to put on that calendar really created some structure that he needed and that I needed. So as I said, you can find those activities and fill that calendar, and of course finding the right activity is sometimes the hard part. And again, we talked about in the webinar in March what those activities could be, and I gave an enormous amount of choices and things that you could go and look at. So go and look at those things and see what the options are. And today I'm going to really talk about not what are the options, but how do I help my child fit into the options that are out there. So I'm going to talk about that specifically in this format, on how to build friendships and build community around your child. So if your child's in a community activity, how do you help them build friendships there, and how do you help them build community as a whole? And I'm going to deal with that in 4 different sections: introductions, proximity, shared interest, and bridge building. So starting with introductions. When your child is going to be in an activity, whatever that might be, whether it's a Parks and Rec camp or whether it's a swimming lesson, whatever it might be, you as the parent, as you're taking your child or your young adult to these activities, you have the power to define your child as alike or as different. So when you want your child to be a part of a community, we want to spend our time describing how our child is alike the other people that are participating in this activity. Look at what his or her shared interest and gifts are, the alike part, and not really focusing in this setting on the disability, the different part. Having your child participate with another group of children in a camp at the YMCA is not really the time that you want to start disability awareness. You really want to talk about, my child likes to swim, my child likes to watch movies, like the other children who are in this activity. My child likes Legos, like the other children in the Lego club. Whatever it might be that makes your child alike and can bond and build that community is where you want to start with your introduction. So, for example, here's 2 ways to describe people. First, we've got Charlie. Charlie can be described as nonverbal, autistic, non-compliant. He cannot read. He perseverates, He has frequent meltdowns. How many people are going to want Charlie in their summer camp? He doesn't sound like a very fun kid to have in your group. But then you've got Rob. I'm going to describe Rob. He uses a communication device. He loves anything to do with cars. He likes watching videos, and he will stick to a problem until he solves it. Rob sounds much more like a person I would want to have in a group, whether it's a game group or whatever it is that I'm doing. I would like Rob to be there more than Charlie. The interesting thing is, Charlie and Rob here are the same exact kid. I've just taken and described them in 2 different ways. I've looked at what they can't do versus what they can do. So when you're trying to get your individual with autism to be a part of something in the community, you want to focus on the alikes and not the difference. There will be a time when you're going to need to talk about the differences. Yes, you're going to need to say that, this might happen or this, but to get that door open, you're going to want to focus on the alikes. You're going to want people to want your child to be there. So then you move to proximity. So how do you, you've got the introduction, how do you get people to actually want to interact with your individual? Great way to do that is to look for activities that are not defined by competition, but instead are defined by cooperation. Activities where people have to work together, not where one person is going to be better than the other or the other. Or you find activities that, like a golf camp, where it's not, you're competing against yourself. If there is going to be competition, that it's against yourself. You don't want to set your child up, your adult up, for just straight competition. Look for activities that have structure and predictability. So you have two different camp options in your community, for example. Go look at them. Which one has a structure? Which one has a schedule? If they have a schedule and they have a structure and they follow some sort of day-to-day activity, that's probably going to be your better option. Look for the things that have structure and predictability. Look for activities that have to do with your child's special interests. And I've listed a few here that individuals with autism, again, big picture here, but a lot of individuals with autism might enjoy these type of things: chess, science, sports, robotics, games. I could add to it Legos, trains. If you live with an individual with autism, you know whatever their special interest is. In my house, we call it my son's thing. It's varied throughout the years, but whatever that used to be Thomas the Train, and now he's into sports statistics. So what is their special interest? And look for those activities in your community that might involve those. And then look around at the people that are your child's age, whatever, again, whether they're preschool or whether they're an adult. People who are 2 or 22 in your community, what are they doing in the summer? What do they do to fill their time? Look and see what other people are doing and the people right in your backyard, so that you can find the things that your child will fit in your community itself, and you're not having to go halfway across the world to find something that's special for your child, but instead finding what everybody else is doing as well. Some of those, and again, I'm not going to get into all these things, but just some throwing this out there today: Scouts, church and youth groups, YMCAs, 4-H, community pool. A lot of summers are spent at the community pool for a lot of people. Parks and Rec, and you want to make sure you ask about inclusion coaches there. Again, not going to dig into that today, but know that that's something to ask about. Library book clubs, special interest clubs or activities, meetups. If you have an adult, great place to find things are meetup groups. There, you go online, you find meetup groups in your area, and there's a meetup group for everything. There's a meetup group about trains. There's a meetup group about Dungeons and Dragons. There's a meetup group who likes to go to the movies. There are meetup groups about everything, and the same with Be Social groups, the same sort of idea. Check those out for adults. Volunteering, again, base it on their interest. You don't want your child or your adult volunteering in something they hate. My son he doesn't do well with animals, and so we're not going to volunteer at the SPCA. That would create a bad situation all around for him and for everybody else there. And then education classes. Again, there's lots of options for that in the community. But see what everybody else is doing, your individual's age, and get your child or your adult in proximity with the people in their community. Help build that community. And then find the right activity. So again, I'll mention shared interest groups. I just talked about several of those things. But look for the things that your child likes to spend their time doing. And if you don't see them, and it's for your adult, let's say your adult's really into YouTube videos on anime, and you don't see an interest group on that, you can start one. You can start a meetup group on that. You can start a Be Social group on that and make that happen. Look for the activities that involve whatever their area of strength is. And I have an individual, my son is very challenged by autism, and I know sometimes it's hard to find what is his area of strength. What is he good at? But everybody is good at something. And sometimes it takes to really looking and digging and seeing my son is really good at video games. So can I find a group of people that want to get together and play video games periodically? Or is there a video game place like Dave and Buster's that we can go to? What can we do that involve his area of strength? And also look for those groups in your community that are open to differences. And some are and some aren't. And sometimes that's just a matter of checking it out. And it can be very different. You can't just say, well, all 4-H groups are open to differences. Some are and some aren't, because it's made up of the people that are in that group. But look for those groups that are open to those differences and always be pointing back to the alikes. We found, believe it or not, and I am not a big sports person, I'm terrible at sports, but we have found an opening in the sports world. My son helps manage some of the local high school football teams and basketball teams. Football meets all summer. So if that's something, he fills the water bottles and he is happy with that. And so that might be something, to look into as well. And it's kind of a volunteer thing, but it's also a thing that's created. His interest has grown over the time that he's been involved in that. He's learned football, believe it or not, and especially basketball. He understands the game now, and now he has an interest where he likes to watch basketball and go to basketball games. And his interest has grown being involved in these things. And then third, you need to do something that I call bridge building. You need to be a bridge builder yourself. And as parents, you've probably done that already and not realized that's what you were doing. But it's where you help others see your child's potential. And then when your child is in the community and in an activity, you praise and reinforce the community member when they're helpful. So if somebody opens up their group and they're not used to having an individual with autism in their group, and they open up their group and allow your camp or whatever to allow your child, your adult, to participate, thank them for that. Publicly thank them if you can. Send them a thank you note. Let them know this is a valuable thing for not just your child and your family, but for them. Reinforce, that so that they want to do it again, not just for your individual, but for all individuals with autism. Look at the group that's happening, the group that you're trying to get your child involved in, the sport, the activity, and find and encourage the natural supports. Oftentimes there is a child in a group that naturally has a mothering instinct or a caring instinct and wants to be a natural support and wants to befriend your, other children. Look for those, and not just look for them, but encourage them when they do that. Thank them. Thank you for doing that. That grows that whole experience. As a parent, I found that at the beginning, I've often had to volunteer. So scouts or whatever it might be, I've had to be the volunteer so that everybody was kind of okay with and begin to build some confidence in themselves for my son to be a part of that. And then I would fade out of that as quickly as possible and volunteer in the background, because the more my child could be there by himself with natural supports, the better it was for the whole group. So you, as a parent, will often have to be a bridge builder. And then find a bridge builder. So again, if you're working in Parks and Rec, talk to them about inclusion coaches. If you're in a group that has a lot of children or teens, look for peer helpers or talk to the leader about having a peer helper. If you're doing a school or church event, a youth group or something that's offered through the school in the summer, look for older students. Older students in high school in our area have to put in so many hours of volunteer service. They have to as part of their graduation. So why not make it someone's volunteer service that they help your child? They serve as a semi-inclusion coach. They're a peer helper and they get something out of it and your child gets something out of it. So you can look for those type of opportunities. Sometimes older brothers and sisters can serve as this bridge builder, but I caution you to be careful there to make sure that they are willing to do that. You don't want to create a situation where they're resentful that they can't go and do their activity or their camp, or they can't just be who they want to be in that situation. But sometimes they are willing and do want to do that. So that is an option that can be looked at. But be a bridge builder when you need to be, and then look to find a bridge builder so that your individual can participate in what is happening there. I love this quote, and I thought I would share it here at the end. As you're talking about how to get your child or your adult with autism to be a part of their community in the summer, how do I make that connection to where there's not just an activity, but how do they actually fit in? It's doing these things of how you introduce them and how you put them in proximity with their community and how you build those bridges. And remembering that this quote, the sand of ordinary life is lived in a community where people spend their days doing very ordinary things. The very commonness is a real gift, a real benefit not to be ignored. Judith Snow said this, and it's just look for the things that are common in your area already. Look for things that will create an ordinary life for your child with autism so that they are doing ordinary things and building their own ordinary interest, whatever that might be, so that one day when they're my son's age or older, he's 19, but he's going to be 30, he's going to be 40, that he has built an interest in a community around him so that when he wants to go and do X or Y or this activity or that activity, there are people around him that know him and know how to support him. And he's learned how to do that. And he's learned how to find things that he likes to do. It's a journey. It's not easy, but it is absolutely worth it. So I encourage you to look for those things in your community and then work toward connecting your child to those. Thank you.